Margaret Kobos, and you are listening to the podcast Open Mic for Open Primaries. I'm the founder and CEO of Oklahoma United, which is the organization that helped launch State Question 836, which is the proposed constitutional amendment to bring a top two unified open primary to the state of Oklahoma. Under State Question 836, every voter will be able to participate fully and matter in every election we are all funding, and every elected official will be accountable to every voter in this top two primary proposal. All Oklahomans will use a single primary ballot with all candidates and their registration preferences listed, very similar to what we already do in every Oklahoma city and town. It's simple, and we all get to vote for whoever we want in every contested race. In this podcast, we meet and learn from different Oklahoma business, political, and community leaders, and we try to connect the dots between the power of the people in voting in a fully open primary, all of us voting in elections that matter, and the specific outcomes we see in Oklahoma historically and today. So today, my guest is Erika Lucas. Erika is known for her expertise in entrepreneurship and venture capital businesses. She's based in Oklahoma City, but she certainly has a national reach. After starting her career in marketing and business development with AIG and positions with Republic, the Thunder Launchpad, Arvest Bank, Erika served as the Trade and Foreign Investment Director of the Oklahoma Department of Commerce until 2014. She then oversaw Acorn Growth Company's marketing and development initiatives. She founded Stitch Crew, an organization that provides capital and resources to women and minority-owned businesses. Stitch Crew has collaborated on global brand projects related to the Oklahoma City Thunder, BASF, Google, and other high-profile companies. Erika is obviously committed to a life working to bring business and opportunity to the state of Oklahoma. And I have to say, we all want that. We all want a strong economy that can sustain our people and maximizes our talent. So Erika, I want to say thank you so much for being with me today. I'd love to start out with an introduction, maybe your background on Stitch Crew. So just want to, you can do a greeting here and then tell us a little bit of detail on how Stitch Crew is organized and what are you trying to do with it?
Well, first of all, thank you, Margaret, for having me, and thank you for all the work that you're doing to better our state. So Stitch Crew started about 8 years ago now in 2017, late 2017, as an idea where, what we were trying to do at the time was we were seeing the exodus of particularly young people leaving the state in search of more collaborative environments for entrepreneurs. At the time, we were heavily focused on tech entrepreneurs and venture capital entrepreneurs that were seeking venture capital, private investment. Um, and, at the time, we were trying to convince chambers of commerce, economic development groups to launch their own initiative because I was employed, as you said, and Chris, who is my co-founder, was also having his own ventures. So we didn't necessarily set out to launch Stitch Crew. But everybody kind of told us, no, that's not real economic development. Real economic development is focused on attracting the large companies that are already large and helping them set up shop here, helping existing companies further expand. Anyway, so everybody told us no, except for one partner, which is the Oklahoma City Thunder, as you mentioned in the intro. And so we started with the Thunder Launchpad as a way to, support local entrepreneurs grow. And since then, we've developed multiple programs from the Women's Health Accelerator to the Native American Women Accelerator. We've done an Inclusive Beauty Accelerators. We've done programming with Canada and so on. Fast forward to today, we've supported over 250 companies with small grants, access to capital anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. But most importantly, we're trying to do away with this false narrative of the lone wolf self-made billionaire, because we know that that story is actually um, not very truthful. When we dive in, nobody builds companies alone. You need community, you need resources, you need capital. And so for us, that has been very important throughout our journey and as we help companies. So we have a really strong hold in the community and the alumni that we've supported through our multiple programs. So that's the intro to Stitch Crew. Right now, we're running two programs, one that focuses on local entrepreneurs here in the state of Oklahoma, supporting women entrepreneurs throughout the state with year-round coaching, and another one that focuses on supporting our alumni reach $1 million in revenue.
So if you were to describe your footprint at Stitch Crew, can you tell me geographically and demographically where you are?
Yeah, yeah. So again, we started very local, focusing exclusively in Oklahoma, but we have since then expanded even internationally with programming in Canada. But really, most of our programs are national in nature, although we try to focus on traditionally overlooked markets, which tend to be markets, near to us, right? So Arkansas, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Louisiana. So really, our programs, most of our programs, except for the two last ones that I just mentioned, because those are specific to Oklahoma, but most of our other programs are open to anyone, regardless of where they're located.
So how do people find you?
Yeah. So you can go to our website, www.stitchcrew.com, and that's where people can find out more about the programs that we run through there. Also happy to talk about an evolution vest, which we've launched also in 2020 as a result of the disproportionate effect the pandemic had on women professionals. But that's also, you can learn more there at www.vesther.co. I'm also very active on LinkedIn. So, or in LinkedIn and social media. So LinkedIn, Instagram, Threads. So yeah, if you send me a DM through my social media, I usually respond. Just give me a couple of days because I don't, it can get overwhelming. But yeah.
Yeah. So I am really interested. You and I met a couple of years ago, I think, on a panel that was focused on women and business opportunities and leadership opportunities. And I was there because, I'm interested in civic engagement. And we know that civic engagement is linked to a lot of other things that are beneficial, not just for women, but for their families and for the communities they live in. So higher credit scores, um, more impact on local government and policies, everything, business opportunities, all of those, education, all of that is correlated to voting patterns. And of course, it is not limited to women. And my group, Oklahoma United, we want everybody treated the same, which I think is, I don't know, don't we all want that?
Good.
So of course, that includes women, but it also includes men. I was looking at statistics. Oklahoma has a slightly higher proportion of females to males overall in our population, and it's been like that for a little while now. We actually, our birth rates, I noticed, I go down these rabbit holes. I noticed our birth rates, we have slightly higher birth rates of boys, but our birth rate is declining, um, as it is in many places, but it is significantly declining in Oklahoma. So when you're talking about a workforce and you're talking about opportunity and economics, and you have the fifth highest divorce rate in the country, which we do in Oklahoma, uh, then you're getting down to how are we taking care of each other?
Mhm.
How are we taking care of our aging parents? how are we affording to take care of our kids? And when you and I, this is a very long question, like wind up to this thing, but when you and I met, we were talking about the effects of COVID on women and the disproportionate effect. And I wonder if you have any statistics or enlightenment that you can share on the reality of what's going on since 2020, and has that changed? How has it changed uh, people and business, especially women-owned and minority businesses?
Yeah, I have all the statistics because as a woman of color in the middle of the country, I have to use statistics to prove my point oftentimes. But yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, as a whole, women represent 50% of the population, 50% of the labor force, 40% of businesses in the United States. We control most of the purchasing power in the United States, but when it comes to sustainability, we're still far behind. So in tying it up, I think the last time we spoke at that panel, we were talking about just particularly the statistics in Oklahoma. I mean, unfortunately, our state does rank as one of the last states when it comes to women's economic well-being. And that affects all of us because we know that when women are not doing well, families are not doing well, right? So we can't have a thriving economy if women and parents and caregivers are not doing well. And what I tell people all the time, because, I get criticized a lot by certain people because I am very vocal and civically engaged, particularly on social media. And so people say, why? Why do you take the risk? And I tell people that I take the risk because we can't afford not to, right? When regular people, when business people, professionals, whatever, business owners, small business owners particularly, don't get engaged, what happens is that very extreme voices take control of the narrative and they take control of the policies. And the policies are basically the rules of the game, right? So the policies dictate how we deal with healthcare. The policies dictate how we deal with education. The policies dictate how we deal with infrastructure. And all of those things are critical things that get in the way of whether or not people take the risk of going into entrepreneurship. If women don't feel like they can access healthcare, if women don't feel like they have secure housing, if women don't feel like they can provide a stable environment for their children to be able to go to school and do all of those things, they're not going to take an additional risk of going into entrepreneurship, right? Because we need steady income. So a lot of the
Right.
time,
I would say also it's affecting young people's choices about even something as simple as getting married or having
100%,
babies of their own.
it,
We
it
have a
affects everything.
declining, yeah, if you don't
Yeah,
feel financially secure, it colors everything.
exactly. And so I just I hope that we are past that where we say, well, why are you so, politically active, or why do you talk about politics all the time? We can't afford not to, right? When you look at how our state is performing, 15, not just for women, but in education, the rankings just came out and we're doing terribly in education. Um, and, I tell my friends that are in economic development or in economic policy, it's great to tout the announcement of like, oh, this company just invested here, but are we going to be able to keep that up?
I have a question for you that only you would know. Of any of our guests that I will probably ever have, you're going to know the answer to this question. My
Shoot.
question is, when we are making these fancy announcements about these, companies with jobs, and honestly, it's kind of sad sometimes they make a big announcement and it's like 150 jobs for a construction project, and then after it's done, then it's just a ghost town. But how much are we paying in incentives, the state of Oklahoma, for this effort on a year over year basis? Do you have
Yeah.
any idea?
Oh, Margaret, I mean, that we could have that conversation, just like a whole episode on that. Unfortunately, incentives are also part of the rule of the game. So I think every state has incentives and every state shops for these type of projects. That's what I used to do when I was at Commerce, right? So you're right. We often end up buying the deals and competing with other states to try to get these companies to move often from one state to another, right? Just so that they can benefit from a lower cost of business, maybe a better tax infrastructure, in that state. But are we really creating new jobs, or are we just moving them from whether it's California or Texas or whatever from job? It's not really net new job creation. Um, so I argue that when people were like making fun of our little deals, like, oh, you're helping entrepreneurs, that's cute. And I'm like, I'm helping us grow organically as
Yeah,
opposed
I
to
think
by
small business
acquisition.
in Oklahoma, I think there's a broad consensus that small business is where it's at, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
And I'm curious, can you tell me about a couple of typical small business ideas that have come to you that you're super proud of that are based in Oklahoma?
Yeah, several. I mean, I can tell you about one of the companies, by the way. So Stitch Crew is one pillar that we do where we provide the grants and support small businesses, whether they're venture back or not. Then we have the peer network, which I mentioned, that's best. That's peer network, women professionals from C-suite to emerging leaders. Over 300 women we've supported through that program, both in Tulsa and Oklahoma City. And then the last one is a fund that we have where we invest in women-led companies. And I can tell you one example of those because it's based here in Oklahoma, and it's Sandra Ride led, was founded and established by a woman leader, Laura Fleet, here in Oklahoma. They basically provide transportation to at-risk populations so that they don't miss their health appointments, right? Which is very needed. Transportation is one of the critical components in people who have chronic problems. They don't make their appointments, especially if they're elderly, especially if they don't have ways to get to their appointment. So Senderite is set to solve that problem, and they've grown significantly here in the state. And again, women led. Laura has since stepped down. That was the founder, but another woman took charge, and Jessica is now the CEO. That's one great example of a company. But again, we've supported over 250 companies, a lot of them based here in Oklahoma. Latino founders are doing amazing work. And sometimes it's small. Laura, it's obviously venture backed, privately investors have invested in that company. But I also tell people, there's a lot of, like you said, small businesses that are not getting private funding, but they're growing through revenue and they're growing through more traditional streams, and they're amazing as well. And yeah, that is how we grow organically, right? Those businesses can help us grow without, and unfortunately, I would argue we need more incentives for those type of businesses rather than just through the acquisitions that we do, back to your original question. Because sometimes we do pay a lot for these businesses to come to the state of Oklahoma, and we have to in a way to be able to compete with other states. So I'm not throwing shade at the fact that we use incentives, but I do think it's important for people to realize that oftentimes it's a pay to play scenario, and we are spending. What gets me upset is that a lot of people don't realize when they say, "Oh, well, we shouldn't do handouts for these type of people or for individuals. That costs too much." But they don't realize that we're actually doing a lot of incentives for big companies. So it's okay to give it to big companies, but it's not okay to give it to the
Yeah,
individual or
we
communities.
have no idea. The normal average citizens have no idea, which is why I think honestly, why there's a lot of frustration on the other side of that conversation about taxes and tax policy and why am I paying all these taxes? Where's my money going? They really literally don't know. We don't know where the money's going. So I do think there's a lot of work and transparency that needs to happen in government so that we all understand what we are paying for. And I would say, with regard to uh, giving someone a ride to their medical appointment, as a working female, uh, myself, trying to take care of an aged parent and trying to work and raise a child at the same time, yeah, that's rough, even for a fully employed person to take off work uh, and go take care of that. But it has to be a priority. But how do you juggle all of those things when you have to have your job? And
Yeah.
it's existential, really, in a lot of smaller communities. Uh, it's just an impossibility to do all of that, which is why then we fall into this cycle of, you know, impoverishment and even worse uh, because of the inability to support that. And one of the things that about State Question 836 to me is a great parallel to me is to look at the great work of our cities and towns.
Mhm.
Oklahoma City, of course, is a great example. You guys have, I don't know what kind of Kool-Aid you have over there, but it's awesome. And we all need some in the state of Oklahoma. I think sometimes our worst enemy is ourselves in the sense of defeatism
Mhm.
that can be present in certain conversations about, well, it's just always going to be this way. And you have proven in Oklahoma City that it doesn't have to always be that way. And I want you to talk maybe for a minute about Oklahoma City and the positive things that have happened as you have been there, and what your observations are that we can take away.
Yeah. I do think that at the core of Oklahoma City is it's the people that are working to make the city better each and every day. And I think you can see it in public-private investments like the Oklahoma City Thunder, right? Like when they came here, how much they've grown, how much they've put us on the map for additional investment. They're a great partner. As I mentioned, they were Stitch Crew's first and still to this date consistent sponsor and partner. Um, and that's a great example, right? Because to me, the Oklahoma City Thunder is not just a basketball team. They've done so much for our community. Again, saying yes to us when everybody said no, because they understood where Oklahoma City was heading. They understood the shift of demographics. And to your point, the shortage of labor, the shortage of birth rates and all of that, and that our Latino population was growing and that other populations are growing. And that's a good thing, right? Like as we diversify, that's a good thing. It's not a threat. It's not something to be afraid of. It's something to embrace and something that we can all tap into. And I think that I guess the reason why I often use them as an example is because it was government working with the private sector entity to do well in business, but also do well for our community and to take advantage of that.
You
I think
have
that's
we have a strong philanthropic community in across the state of Oklahoma. In every town, there are leaders who are committing their free time and they roll up their sleeves and they are fundraising. It can be exhausting for all of us. It can be exhausting for those who want to contribute and volunteer, and it can be exhausting for the philanthropists themselves. And I think what we are looking for, and I think the magic with State Question 836 is to try to replicate that partnership and to bring the state government in line with our urban and smaller town communities who are already making those partnerships happen. And you can see the results in Oklahoma City. You know, I've had family there for generations, and I don't live there now, but it's obviously transformed, and it's not stopping. And it's one of those um, cities that has this really positive energy and more of an attitude of why not
Mhm.
than no.
Yeah.
You know, it's a reflexive thing that you guys are all asking the question, why not? Why not do that? So I do think we need more of that in our state government. So you wrote a little opinion piece, which I think is going to be published soon. Why don't you tell me kind of what you think the through line or the bottom line of that is? Just give everyone a little preview of what your thoughts are about this state question.
Yeah. Well, the state question resonates a lot with me. Open primaries resonates a lot with me because I'm an independent, right? I've always, as an immigrant here, I migrated here, became a citizen, did all of that. And then when I started voting, I just fundamentally believe that no party holds a stake or ownership in good ideas. I believe that we're better when we can, I don't believe in like, uh, um, what's that saying that all minds think alike? We can, no, like challenge me, challenge my thoughts, but in a respectful way and in a way that moves us forward. And so I'm registered independent and have been for almost my entire, since I became a citizen. Um, and unfortunately, though, that prohibits me from voting in the primaries, which the primaries in the state of Oklahoma, I would argue, are the most critical, because that's where candidates get decided. That's, if we, elect a radical candidate or somebody that's willing to work with everybody to make sure that everybody is represented and somebody that understands accountability, right? Somebody that understands they work for us, not the other way around. And
That's refreshing.
anyways, yeah, so I register independent, and unfortunately, because of that, here in the state of Oklahoma, I'm only eligible to vote in the Democratic primaries, not in the Republican primaries. And so that's been a frustration of mine because I pay taxes like anybody else. I contribute to our community. I run program, I could be in the private sector, probably making three times what I make right now. But I choose to do what I do because I think it's moving our state forward and it's moving our country forward. And yet I don't get to participate in what I consider to be the most critical component of our democracy. So I think, the open primaries and the state question 836 would enable us independents. And by the way, I can't remember the statistic, but there are thousands of us independents that are in the same boat as I am. So that's the reason number one why this resonated with me. And I talk about this in the op-ed. Number two is I want to give everybody, whether you're an independent, Democrat, or Republican, the opportunity to choose the best candidate for our state. And oftentimes I feel that when we go into primaries is like the most popular vote or the most vocal vote or the people that has the most money or has raised most money. And that leaves a lot of people out, right? And that, people, and oftentimes I tell people because, obviously I work a lot with the Latino community, we're busy. We're working. We don't have time to like learn everything and go to the primary now over here, now over here. And so it can get overwhelming. And so I think that having an open primary where you can get to see everyone, have an open discussion about everybody that's surrounding, who is the most willing to work with people, who's the most willing to be held accountable to the decisions that they're going to be making, who's going to hold town halls to talk to us regular people when we disagree on something. And that's not happening right now in our state at all. And I think people are frustrated, rightly so. And we don't know how to take out that frustration because the way we vote currently, it's so close. And it benefits primarily the people that are not necessarily in it for the best interest of everyone in our state.
I feel like this idea of you and your work and your focus on women and minority-owned businesses really it corresponds to what I'm trying to do or what we're trying to do with State Question 836, because ultimately what we are acknowledging is, yes, there is a lot of partisan chaos going on in the state of Oklahoma right now. And we're not talking about anything nationally. We're talking about us right here. And we are at the point where people are not getting along and for emotional reasons and dogmatic absolutism. And I think it is kind of time for the parents, the adults in the room to say, we're just not going to do this, people. We're not going to do this. We're not going to perpetuate a system that pits us against each other from the get-go. And so I'm smiling as you're talking about the division in our life, because I'm imagining a workplace I've worked in banks, I've worked in law offices, and it has gotten to the point where everyone's kind of afraid to talk about anything about government policies, opinions, anything. We don't even talk about it because we just don't want to get into some kind of argument. But imagine, as our license plates say, imagine if everybody were on the same ballot. And yes, there would be a party registration noted on that ballot, but it wouldn't really matter as much as who is this person? What is their value system? What is their experience? What are their ideas? How are they going to make that, whatever that job is, better? Whether it's education or it's just generally being a state representative, or maybe it's, you know, the labor department or the commerce department or the insurance department. What are the qualifications of this person? And do I think this person, regardless of where they come from, is going to be better
Oh,
for us
100%.
going forward?
I think we need to move away from labeling each other to one party or another one and really start looking at the issues, right? And seeing how much depth some of these candidates have on the issues, not talking points given by their political party, not, what they're going to, what's going to go viral on social media. With the way we currently do things and why we need open primaries is instead of thinking, what if we did things, instead of thinking forward and like having this growth mindset and having this entrepreneurial mindset in a way of like, what could we do together if we focus on this? We're being reactionary, right? Like, oh my gosh, we're 50th in the nation in this. Oh my gosh, we're 50 in the nations in education. So we're always in like panic and survival mode rather than in creating and growing together. Never
It,
going to change until we elect better people and we have better conversations.
I'm so excited to hear you say all of that. We started Oklahoma United looking for one thing, one place we could start to really cure the illness, not just address a symptom.
Mhm.
All of the things that we are seeing, every single thing. And this is how this conversation and all of these podcasts, we are trying to connect the dots. Where are we right now and why? Why are we here? And it really starts with empowering voters and getting them engaged and having those conversations and that accountability. If we don't have that, if we don't change that, you're right. We're going to continue to have the same issues. It's like deja vu, Groundhog Day all the time. And we're so exhausted by it. I do want to say, one of the most famous entrepreneurs of our lifetimes probably is Bill Gates.
Mhm.
And everyone loves the work that he's done in medical research around the world and supporting healthcare and lots of philanthropic endeavors that he engages in. But even he has said early on, after doing all the math, which he excels in, and I do not, he early on announced that without a functional government, without it as a state, as a partner, none of the philanthropy is really going to matter. There's the problems are too big to solve without functional government. And when we talk about the state of Oklahoma and functional government, I think our newspapers would look a little different under an 836 world than they do the front pages every day today, right?
Oh, 100%. And look, I get it. I used to be, one of those people that would say, oh, government is inefficient and government is a barrier and there's so much red tape and stuff. And then I worked in government, right? And you shift, right? Because you see what all the roles the government plays and could it be better? Absolutely. Could the private sector do better? Absolutely. We could always enhance and do better and decrease waste and eliminate barriers and increase efficiency, but it doesn't mean you do away with it, right? I always tell people, especially younger generations that talk about, having to pay taxes and stuff. Listen, If we don't pay taxes, we don't have the infrastructure, even tech companies, right? Like you want broadband, you want, the infrastructure to support, all those data centers that you're seeing being announced, they have to work with government to be able to have the infrastructure to be able to deliver, everything that you need in order for you to be able to use AI. Right. So we need to start seeing government not as a barrier, but as an enabler. Can we enhance it? Absolutely. Can we hold it accountable to do better? Absolutely. But we need the right people in the right place who can think critically and can deliver real solutions, again, as opposed to pit us against one another, oftentimes.
There
So
are
100% I
two,
agree.
there are two business ideas that I experienced when I was working in institutions and I learned about early on. And one is the performance review, right? And right now in Oklahoma state government, under the election system we have, we really don't have accountability with a
Oh,
performance review. In no business would that be possible. You would never be able to deliver last in the US performance in your company as a bank teller and keep your job. So, this is what we need to change. There has to be that public pressure to do the job, and it is incumbent on the elected official to explain the complications. Perhaps there are real reasons why we're not reaching the goals that we want. That's their job to communicate to all of us, not just the 8% that are going to vote for them in a primary. I mean, we've just got to create that accountability. The second element that is a basic business element is strategic vision. And I think that's something that your expertise can speak to a lot. And you talked about it in a way when you said we're too reactive right now in Oklahoma. I imagine a world in which the distractions, the partisan distractions, have been suppressed. And our state government, as the enabler, as the convener, or whatever it is, can bring all the community leaders together with not a long time frame. We're talking like, okay, people, we're going to solve this education problem. We're going to get all these people in the room, and we're not leaving until we have a strategic plan to really address the inequities in funding, the rural school closure issues, the school lunch programs. We're going to get it all in there, and we're going to make a plan so that Oklahoma, let's say, is going to be 25th in the nation at a certain point in time. And then there's that accountability and the benchmarks to get there. We are not running our state like a business. We kind of say we are sometimes, but I just don't see it. I think the proof is in the results, right?
yeah, no, especially for people who say, that they want small government and more efficient government and uh, you know, um, although I would push back because I used to be one that says, we should run government like a business. I used to say all of these things, and when you don't know better, you don't do better. But I also think that it is critical for people to understand that business that you can't run government as a business because it's not intended to be a business. It's intended to make the infrastructure possible for us to be successful as professionals, as business owners, as citizens, right? It's supposed to provide critical functions like healthcare, like education, which we're failing terribly in both of those buckets, safety, right, and all of those things. And I just want to say that because oftentimes people, it's like, even if we were to run it as a business, we're terribly failing at that because nobody wants to be held accountable anymore in our state. Nobody wants to have town halls to have conversations because all of a sudden citizens are angry. Why are you angry? Well, I wonder why. You're not listening to us, regardless of political affiliation. So can I agree with you more there? We just need to, act like professionals, right? Like you said, we need to evaluate what we've been doing, what's not working, and instead of people tell me all the time, going back to open primaries and why I support this initiative. For the longest time, people have told me that I just need to register Republican in the state of Oklahoma to be able to make a, a change. And I refuse to do that. I refuse to do that because to me, that's a band-aid solution, right? Like, okay, so I will register. So, and first of all, I want to thank everyone who has done that and has participated in Republican primaries. So I'm not criticizing you, but I do think it's a band-aid solution because if we really want to get to the root of the problem, open it up for everyone to participate. Like, because I think in Oklahoma, um, we don't, people say we're a such and such rate, a red state, a blue state, or whatever. I don't think it's that. I think we have apathetic voters because they have felt left out so long that they feel like their vote doesn't matter, right? And they feel like, oh, who cares? It's still going to be whoever, right? Or they just give up. And that's what we need to get back to those engaging voters and say, no, your vote absolutely matters, but we need to open it up for them to be able to participate, right? And I think that the open primaries and the state question 836 absolutely does that.
Yeah, I have been also told that we should all just register Republican. I happen to be a lifelong Republican myself, but I don't think that anybody should be forced to affiliate in a party if they don't, if they're not in line with that idea, you know. So I also think it's ironic that ultimately, if we, number one, you're right, telling someone to register in a party to game the system is is acknowledging that the system is
It's
flawed.
broken. Hmm.
So they've already admitted this system is flawed, but here's how you get around it.
Right.
Well, then let's just fix the system. And then we
Exactly.
don't have to have that Band-Aid. The other irony is that if, let's imagine a thought experiment in which every Oklahoman was registered Republican right now. In that world, you would have one primary ballot. All the candidates would be listed on it. They would have, you know, and all voters would be able to participate 100% in that election. That is exactly what we are proposing with State Question 836. So if you are one of those people who thinks that we should all just be Republican or whatever party, and we should all just be in the same party, then you actually you may not realize it, but you're a fan of 836. You just haven't quite decided to go there yet. So I think it's a really strong proposal. We're delighted to have your support. I am so grateful for that, and your business acumen and expertise, and how we can deliver better to all of these small business people around the state of Oklahoma and eliminate some of our distractions that are holding us back in every way in our communities. So I want to
Oh,
thank you for your time today. Is there any little parting thought that I didn't um, cover with you that you'd like to say?
no, I I guess I would just like to ask my fellow peers and citizens to please get engaged. And getting engaged doesn't have to be like being vocal like me on social media. It could be just getting engaged with this effort and maybe signing up as a volunteer. And you don't have to do anything on social media, but maybe you can support in other ways. You can donate to organizations that are doing the work, and something, pick one thing that you're really passionate about and support that way. There are many ways to get civically engaged, to learn what is happening to our country and our democracy and here in our state. Whether it's national, I mean, I would always vote that if you only have time to do one thing, engage locally first. Um, we just can't afford not to. The reason we're in the place that we are, where we're so divided and where we can't have discussions now, is because regular people like you and I haven't been engaged all along. And so our voices are needed, whether on social media or on private small groups. It doesn't matter, but please do something. Please do something because if we continue to be 50th in the nation across every category, then our kids are not going to want to be here. Our grandkids are not going to want to be here.
We
We're
won't
not
want to be
gonna be
here
able
either.
No, exactly, ourselves. Unfortunately, I have to be honest, a lot, I run the vast peer network of women professionals, and many have talked about leaving, and some of it is for safety, some of it is for like, for whatever reason, but it's real. And if we don't take it seriously and if we don't start engaging, we're going to continue to lose people, labor force, business opportunities. And we just can't afford to do that. We have so much potential, and we're losing it because we're not getting engaged.
Well, I think it was a long time ago on our website, I used to like to have a quote from Edmund Burke from the 1700s, the British politician. And he basically said that the biggest mistake anyone can make is doing nothing when he could do a little.
Mhm.
And we definitely want to meet people where they are. We understand that sometimes you just don't have time, or you have an interest, a genuine interest, but you don't have the ability to do a lot. Everything matters. You're absolutely right. And I will say we are Vote Yes 836 and Oklahoma United are going to be at the Tulsa State Fair September 25th through October 5th. And we are looking for volunteers to hang out at our booth. So anyone can get on our website and contact us and sign up for a 2-hour shift. If that's all you wanted to do, just come hang out with us for 2 hours at the Tulsa State Fair and have a good time. And we're going to be meeting a lot of people. And what we try to specialize in is listening. And so I hope that people are going to be listening to this podcast and learning something about you and your great work in Oklahoma and across the US and internationally. And just thank you so much for your energy and expertise today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me and the work that you're doing.